Welcome into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got a good show today, folks. We're going to go into a slightly different direction, but familiar direction today with a new guest, a guest that contacted me via our email, which is on our page, darknessradioshow.com. And he is a journalist who specializes in natural science, whose work has been featured in National Geographic and the History Channel. He was recently on Coast to Coast AM and has an interesting theory when it comes to the paranormal and energy and physics. So we're going to talk about that today. Not the first time that we've gone down this line. We've talked about ley lines in the past. We've talked about how the earth and the energy of the earth sometimes affects the paranormal. We're going to go down that line today with our guest, Gib Berry. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome from Utah, Gib Berry. Gib, how are you?
Great. Excellent. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, thank you. So while we were corresponding online, which thank you so much for contacting me. We were talking a little bit about this theory that about the ghost and paranormal community and the idea that and I'll start slow here for both myself and for the audience. It's mainly for myself. That it takes a certain amount of energy for a spirit to manifest, a certain amount of energy, and you're talking in basically physical terms, ghosts, Bigfoot, aliens, everything. It takes a certain amount of energy for something to manifest, right?
Right.
Um, and the way you were thinking is that it takes a great amount of energy for it to manifest. And in order to do that, we need some sort of energy to manifest from the earth itself. And you're using things like minerals from the earth, right? So, and a type of Faraday cage of sorts. So you're talking minerals like, or even earth minerals. I'll give you a good example. Here in Minnesota, limestone is a great conductor. So we need some sort of conductor to take that energy. And if you take, like, say, water running through limestone, it conducts, it makes energy. There's your, there's your running energy to create ghosts. So, like, say, here in Minnesota, we have the Anderson House Hotel in Wabasha. You've got a river that runs through it, the Mississippi River. You've
Mm.
got plenty of limestone around. Ta-da! You've got conductors for ghosts. You would think, right? Is that a fair assessment of how you can get a conductor started for spirits to be around?
I think so. I think that it's a physical principle that, for something to do something, you need to have force controlling it or stopping it. That's one of Newton's laws.
Now, what happens if I understand that the Earth is a good conductor of certain types of energy. I want to know how ley lines figure in your theory. Ley lines being these natural lines of force throughout the country, because there's been this talk. We've had this talk before on the show, like, say, Disney World or Disneyland. Disneyland's a good one because there's supposedly a ley line of force that runs through Disneyland, and supposedly there's little hauntings that happen at Disneyland. Are these natural lines, these ley lines of force? Are these conductors that actually help in hauntings as well?
They would have to. The ghosts and hauntings would have to have an electrical or an energy of some kind of source. And when I look historically, at least at the ones that I find, sure enough, that's what you find. You find coastal ghosts on coasts where you have volcanic activity that's typical to coasts. You have um, that happening quite a bit in Utah. We have earthquakes, we have faults. So faulting, the Ring of Fire, when you start to look at where those are, a lot of times we don't think of that as electrical, but no, that's energy, and that's where that energy is coming from. Number one. Two, for the longest time, we couldn't really, there was no test for are we moving? And how fast are we moving? The Earth is moving, the solar system, galaxies, all of this is moving. Well, what is it doing to the parts and pieces that are doing? What if we weren't, if we were just sitting stationary? So part of the physics that I'm saying is then that stationary clothing in a dryer is doing nothing. You spin it around, and you create static. And that static electricity, I believe, is proof of movement and through the galaxy, through the cosmos. And that energy is then translated. We have proof of that energy, of that static energy, found in ley lines. And then we have the institutional exploits of those ley lines. People say, oh, the ley lines, what are you talking? Yeah, they're institutionally exploited right straight down, you know, right straight through paranormal places, not the least of which in here in Utah, Skinwalker Ranch.
That's a good example.
Yeah,
Um, there's so much going on Skinwalker Ranch. I think we've been exposed to a lot of it on television.
yeah.
Tell me what it is that's so fascinating about Skinwalker Ranch and why there's so much activity there. What is it about Skinwalker Ranch that you see aliens, you see ghosts, you see all this different activity? What is it about the land itself that draws all this out?
It's the geometry. The basin, the Uinta Basin, is uh, is parabolic. And I'm an audio person, you're an audio person. You understand speakers and you understand some of the principles of what they called whispering corridors and things like that. Here in Utah, we have the Mormon Tabernacle building is parabolic.
Okay.
And you can stand in one area of that building and somebody can whisper clear across the other end and you can hear it just like they're right there. It's this beautiful thing about audio. And so that's what I believe is happening. I guess I'm trying to not be so complicated and get
Oh,
this back to
explain.
the
Go into.
Uinta Basin is a basin, like a basin, and it collects water, it collects all sorts of things. But the one thing it collects is going to be energy.
Okay.
And all of these things are happening right at the center, somewhere close to 40 cattle mutilations in 1 year.
Wow.
Shadow people, UAP like crazy, electronic gear that is showing, give them sort of, they do that television show.
Yeah.
They think that they're hitting something, some kind of they can't dig past a certain point. And every time they try and dig, they have some sort of mysterious things that happen. So that's sort of I guess, sort of an objective view of some of the many things that are happening down there at Skinwalker Ranch. Well, geologically, there's a major fault that runs around there and it winds itself back up to another basin in Snyderville where we lost 13 pregnant cattle. Same fault line. And it goes all the way back to Uinta Basin.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, good. What it gets down to is that if you look at the entire map of North America, you see the geometry that the early people found. It was mostly the Mormons who came and settled this area, and so they found four places because of their valuable minings. They found the most valuable places on the planet, and they happened to make a circle on North America. You have Utah, which is the most valuable spot, the Bingham Mine and all the silver mines, somewhere close to half a billion in the 1870s. $500 million.
Huh. So,
So you're due west and you're going to run into Reno and Tahoe. Now, Tahoe is basically Salt Lake with water. Same basin, same size and everything. And then just up in the mountains for a little drive, boom, most valuable spot, another $500 million in silver from George Hurst. Both places, by the way, are George Hurst mines with similar geometry. To the north, you have volcanic activity of the caldera, and to the south, they discovered Las Vegas. We hear what? They discovered Las Vegas? Yes, because they discovered a mine in Las Vegas. And when you tie all those places together, you get this nice big circle in on North America. Now, you extend that out, and then to this side of that, then you get the Uinta Basin, and then you get the front, the Rocky Mountain front, Denver and Colorado Springs, and then you have this other basin that Tesla exploited the Arkansas River Basin, we can call it. But it's basically the entire United States, bookended there with the Blue Ridge Mountains on the other side.
Okay. With
So
these ba-
that's the geometry that I think is contributing to that.
okay, so with these basins, as you mentioned, they collect and they collect everything, including energy.
Mhm.
What's this energy doing to create the phenomena? And is the phenomena physical, or is it just opening portals to bring something that's energy like beings through it? Are we dealing with a physical phenomena or an energetic phenomena?
Right. I do. I think it can be exploited. I think that there's certain technology that can probably promote it, maybe make it work a little bit better or tune it in or something like that. But yeah, you have you've seen the physics experiment where you have beakers full of fluid and then they take a siphoned tube between those beakers. And if you change the water level in this beaker, it changes the water level in this, right?
Right.
Or let's say you had two basins or beakers and they were full of, and then at the bottoms, you had some tube that was connecting the bottom. So no matter what you did to this one, it's going to affect this one. But if you, for just 1 minute, blocked that connection between them and just filled this one up beyond to the rim, and then you change that connection, the other one would immediately notice, and there would be a discharge between the two, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm saying the same thing as it could very well be happening with energy that bubbles up from all sorts of things that are decomposing, all sorts of things that are happening from earthquake faults and things like that that are rubbing the rocks together. And if you've ever taken a good shock from your laundry, what experts have said is that, yeah, all of that static can accumulate. It will accumulate. It's going to find a spot where it really likes to be. And the thing about it is that like water, it won't stop. Or unlike water, it won't stop accumulating in that area. And so when you start talking about the Earth and the Rocky Mountains being formed 50 million years ago,
Mhm.
and given all that time for these chambers that are basically very conductive, sometimes encrusted in gold and silver, those chambers have built up with the Earth static for tens of millions of years. Those levels of static have reached untold levels. The only expert that's ever really even talked about what happens at those levels is Einstein.
Okay.
Einstein said that when you have those levels of electricity underground with those levels of gravity, which is different. They just think that the gravity is different when you're deep, deep underground than when you're up on the surface on the surfboard. Those are the recipes for what Einstein called relativistic effects. And
Okay.
I believe that that's what we are seeing and calling ghosts and poltergeists are relativistic effects.
Interesting. Okay. So let me take this one step further for another example, so that the audience is kind of grasping what we're seeing here. And I'm going to go back to Skinwalker here and use another effect here. Um, Lights in the sky, or aliens, or a ship, or whatever it is that we're seeing, or even in effect. So, are you telling me, like in an area such as Unitah Basin or Skinwalker Ranch, when we see what could be an alien ship or some sort of craft, is it using this collection of energy to maybe create a portal to come in through, whether it be their dimension or wherever it is that they're coming from, to traverse from their dimension into ours and make an appearance?
I say that's highly likely. And I think that it's supported by the physical record of sightings. One, sightings are blurry. People don't want blurry sightings, but they have to admit my sighting was blurry. Two, there's generally no audio. People want to admit, I heard this sound and it was blah, but no, damn thing was silent. I don't know. It was the weirdest, creepiest thing. Those are some very consistent things that we hear about this sort of thing.
Right.
All right. Then I want to talk about a child's toy called a miroscope. I showed you a picture of that. It's a parabolic mirror on a top and a bottom
Mhm.
that you can, right? It's about this big. Some of you have seen it. And you can put a toy inside this sort of egg, and then there's a hole at the top of the egg where that toy is perfectly sort of represented as a hologram. It's the only way we can really make that sort of Princess Leia hologram. And the military likes that because what that is that all the data from that area is all being perfectly nicely put into the center. So if you can access that center point of data, then you've got this nice little spy rig. And that's exactly what the military was doing when Roswell happened, if you don't mind.
Oh, go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead. Expound on it.
That people have Roswell's an entry point, and Roswell is a basin. Again, it's a northward basin, very much like Salt Lake, has an artesian well at the center, and it's very much like the Uinta Basin. What I believe happened, and they say that there was a program called the Mogul Program. They could not have just made this up. It was already an established program where they're floating balloons over that center spot. I believe it's the Miroscope spot where they can get a really clear picture of all sorts of energy from that basin, and they can basically spy on cities around the world, Russians or whatever, at that time. That was a big 600-foot, mostly aluminum foil and sticks and all that stuff.
Interesting.
Right. So there's the concept right there.
Okay.
But then the concept happens two more times.
Okay.
You've got a 600-foot aluminum kite basically at the edge of space, up where Tesla said, "Yeah, baby, plug in up here." Up there on the edge of space, collecting and collecting and collecting static. Static doesn't stop collecting. It will just keep collecting. It will hit massive amounts of high voltage, low current electricity and current or energy, high voltage.
Mhm.
Very likely that something would see that. Something would be like, what is that at the floating above Roswell? Something, our own military, our own, some enemies, something ET, we don't know, but it's going to get noticed. It's going to get noticed because of the effects that this thing is going to have. Why? High voltage and relativistic effects. We can't even do GPS, by the way, without taking that into effect. That is one industry where they were like, guys, we need to listen to Einstein on this one, or people are going to be driving their cars off the GPS needs Einstein's relativity theories to work.
Right.
Well, this is the same thing, only this is unrecognized relativity. Hey, let's put a kite up in sky and see what happens. Well, I think something came to check it out. Something that's a parabolic dish, that's a third iteration of this. I believe that that's a high voltage Faraday cage, just like the Philadelphia experiment. They charge the whole of this ship. It goes nowhere. It stays right where it is, and its hologram travels through space, but it does it by time.
Okay.
So when you take a picture of it, it's not going to be clear because it's not chronologically part of this earth. It's like when you're holding a big long stick or something like that. You can't hold the end really still because it's way the heck out there, right?
Right.
Same thing. It's like physics is using this extreme, like Einstein says, you have to have this extreme in order to get it. And so it's out there doing its best, but it's basically shaking like this, right?
Right.
And you're never going to get a clear picture of something that's traveling by time. Second, you're never going to hear the sound with it either because sound is a different phenomenon altogether that's happening back to where that thing is sitting. What basically I believe is happening based on the reports of the USS Eldridge, which is the Philadelphia experiment where they charged the hole, and this thing traveled through time directly south and then reappeared. The same thing happens, oh boy, with the scrotum and the balls of a cattle on a ranch. And I know the people are laughing and
Well,
throwing stuff at their screens right now. And was the same way as a journalist. Like, oh my God, what, where are we going with this? But
I wanted to take you in this direction, so go ahead.
did you?
I wanted to talk
You
about that.
have because you have this rancher going, we don't know how the hell this happened. The sack is gone, but the balls are dug like 10 feet south from this cow that was mutilated. And that's the Philadelphia experiment. It's the same thing. I think I know that I'm making a real big stretch and something like, wait a
No,
minute.
no, go ahead.
But you've got a Faraday cage, something that got charged, that's low impedance, like the scrotum of a cow, close to the ground, close to the fence, and all this stuff. And it suspends that, I think. It suspends it just like it would maybe a UFO, and it lets the cosmos move around it. So in that period of time, while these balls were shocked by hundreds of millions of volts of high voltage. It's ephemeral, so it doesn't last. There's no current, so it doesn't fry them. It's not a oven baked sort of deal. I think even Tesla was like taking a few volts from the junction box from time to time, but hey, what do I know? You have the deposition of these testicles now due south of the cow.
Is
How did that
that
happen otherwise?
is that why it's so bloodless and clean, these cuts?
That's my attitude. That's what I'm saying is that they come into contact with something that has been charged. If you see some of the pictures I gave you,
Mhm.
I gave you pictures from all over the West, Montana, Utah, box elder, East Carbon, cows that are having this problem right next to the barbed wire fence. Right next to it's almost like how come you guys aren't even seeing that is very likely an electrical component? And I know because I've been working with a rancher and he's flat out once said, he said, look, man, I know what lightning looks like when it hits something. We're not dealing with lightning. And I'm like, yeah, I know we're not dealing with lightning. We're dealing with lightning's opposite twin or something like that. All the voltage of lightning, but none of the damaging effects. No current, so it doesn't damage. There's no damage. And so when that hits the tongue of a cow that's out there and it gives its most valuable fleshy part and touches it to the fence, to a stream, that is a part of conductive ground here in Utah. I mean, our ground is very conductive, like you said, in Minnesota. That's where it happens. We see it all the way back to the one of the first ones in Sippy the horse, right? In that big, massive, high altitude parabolic basin down there. Same thing happens. The face is fried. The internal organs are, it follows this path where I believe the internal organs and the blood, the iron-rich blood, is absolutely vaporized. And I think, according to Einstein, goes to a completely different time and place. I'm not a physicist. I'm not Einstein. I can't say for sure that that's the best, interpretation of general and special relativity, but that's the idea that when you hit something conductive like that, at least in terms of the Philadelphia experiment, those people were fused with the metal when they came back
Yeah.
from because there's something happening with there's something happening with conductivity there, with impedance. And so when you look at the cow mutilation phenomenon that happens very regularly here in Utah, it's happening at the center of basins, and it's happening very similarly to where you could be saying that, oh, what it looks like is that it's being hit with a major amount of high voltage electricity. It's leaving the bones alone, but all of the low impedance stuff it's hitting, especially the pregnant cows, because they're so full of rich, nutrients it's going after, and their udders are right there close to the ground. You're really talking about electricity that's just looking for a place to just looking for ground.
Right.
And so the rancher I'm working with, sorry if this is a long answer, but
No, no, it's not.
he has railroad tracks coming right to his property and this big long barbed wire fence that is coming converging and I believe focusing energy to places that all it takes is then for this animal to offer its soft fleshy tongue and all the way back to the balls.
It's like a lightning rod. It just, you put the tongue out there and boom, right?
Yeah, except there's just no amps, so it doesn't char. And there are some, obviously there's some charring in the reports, but not like what we see from lightning, right? That
Right.
just is so destructive.
Interesting. See, I think for the longest time we wanted to. You need a villain in the story, right? So you just say, well, it's got to be an alien coming down and wanting to conduct experiments on a cow and it to see, over and over again. But it doesn't make sense why an alien would come down and keep dissecting cows.
Yeah, and leaving everything behind too, like
Right.
the. So my attitude was, all right, so maybe to have something here. So if there's energy out there, then it must be recording itself somehow. There must be recordings of this energy. And when you go to the unitahbasin, you find out that that's one of the most popular places for dinosaur fossils. It's one of the, I don't know how I'm
Yeah.
supposed to say that, but
Sure.
we're just finding new dinosaur fossils there too. That it looks to me like this energy manifests itself in water. And so my theory was, okay, so it must be that there's these fossils and so we have these incredible fossils that are only described in German terms. And they're super rare too. So I believe that, okay, that's water inside of, animals and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have Dugway geodes here in Utah. Dugway is the where we had that sheep incident. Also, Dugway geodes are these rocks that are just full of these beautiful mineral deposits. I believe, again, same thing, water trapped in rocks. This is what happens.
Mhm.
It's hit by this amazing amount of energy. And with these fossils too, by the way, we get time mismatches. We get these fig wasps that are mismatched with their figs, and the fossil record's all messed up. And the dinosaurs, like, really, like, you start to wonder. So, okay, all right. Now, what about water when it is in a mist form? And that's when I'm like, oh, there's your UAP. There's your ephemeral, your figments that come and go, that use this sort of mist in the air that gets energized by high voltage that's in the area, just like a tornado, just like any sort of meteorological event out there. But we're talking about high voltage energy and also ionizing radiation is the key.
Okay.
Ionizing radiation is somehow a key here, and that's also getting twined into this energy. And how do I know? Well, gosh, that sure sounds like the Giza Plateau. It sure sounds like that's what the pyramids are doing,
Mhm.
is that they're creating these little mini earthquakes with this pump that, some probably guests on your show have shown that could easily be this pump that's shaken up all of the piezoelectric granite and things that are happening inside of there. And that is going to take the Nile Basin, which is going to be very radioactive because it's a Nile River basin. It's going to have some ionic properties to it, but it's also going to twine that with the piezoelectric energy in there. And it forces it straight down under the pyramid to that subchamber. What did they get from that? Fossilized people is what they got from that. They show it, the fossilized people, fossilized animals. They say this is a funerary um, thing. And guess what? I agree completely. That's exactly what's going on. They're embalming people in gold in there. I think,
Wow.
like possibly, again, very speculative,
Right.
but the physics is there for them to be doing that. That's could be what they're doing. That there's gold down in that subchamber that they show that has inside the quartz, right there in the pieces of the subchamber of a man-made thing, they're generating gold. So yeah, like the way that I'm saying that gold is tiny little pieces in water But when all of a sudden the water is zapped away to another time and place or something like that, the gold stays. And so you get a geode. You get these remarkable chambers in Utah called, like the Crescent Bug. That was in Colorado, but these amazing, massive chambers that are basically molecule by molecule been just ionized by gold telluride that makes these chambers, according to Einstein anyway, very magic places, but quite possibly portals to another time.
Very interesting. I tell you what, Gib, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, I want to introduce the idea of heaven and what Dr. Michael Guillen from Harvard said this past week in a news story that we covered in Supernatural News. I'm going to throw this theory by you, and then I want to bring this back around to the afterlife and how this comes into your theories as well when it comes to energy and what we're dealing with here on Earth.
Oh, it's scary.
And and is heaven a place on Earth? I'm going to tie this together, and I want to throw your theory in with Dr. Guillen and see if we can marry the two. Okay. And we're just going to spitball here for a little bit when we
That's
come.
fine. I
Okay.
hear the wedding bells. Excellent.
Okay. So we'll do that when we come back. Gib Berry is my guest, and we're talking a little bit about energy and the paranormal today and about the physical side of the paranormal is what we're talking about today. And when we come back, is like Belinda Carlisle said, is heaven really a place here on earth? We'll talk about that next here on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is Gib Berry. The topic today is the physical side of the paranormal. And we'll talk today a little bit. We've talked a little bit about aliens. We talked a little bit about cattle mutilations, which is absolutely fascinating, and about fossilized dinosaurs, a little bit about that. I want to switch our focus now a little bit to the afterlife and about heaven. There's a story I read yesterday with Mally in Supernatural News about an astrophysicist who believes that he knows where heaven is located, Gib. And Gib Berry is our guest today. And thank you so much, Gib, for being with us today.
Thank you.
One Harvard scientist maintains that heaven not only exists, but that he might know exactly where it can be found. Okay, and I'll read the story here to you and give you an idea of what he says, and then we'll try and marry it to your research, and we'll put these together and see if we can come to a crux point here.
Okay.
At first glance, astrophysics and religion might not seem to be compatible, but for Harvard astrophysicist Dr. Michael Guillen, the two can come together in some surprising ways. To understand what Dr. Guillen is proposing, we must first look at the universe on a wider scale, or more specifically, the speed at which the universe is expanding. Because this expansion is thought to be accelerating, thus further away from the Earth you go, the faster the expansion is occurring. Now, what Dr. Guillen says is there's a point known as the cosmic horizon, where things are receding away from us so quickly that the light from them will never reach us and we will never be able to see them. So what he says is this. They say that most astronomers maintain that the objects beyond this point are not otherwise noteworthy, save for the fact that we can't see them. But Dr. Guillen has an altogether different perspective on this. He argues that here in this region of the universe that we cannot see, there is no past, present, or future, only timelessness. Okay? He says, and he told this to Fox News, as a scientist, I understand the importance of definitions. He says, according to the Bible, the lowest level of heaven is the Earth's atmosphere. The mid-level heaven is outer space. The highest level heaven is what we're talking about. It's where God dwells. Dr. Guillen maintains that this region matches descriptions of heaven in the Bible and could be inhabited by non-material, timeless beings, otherwise known as the spirits of the dead. It's certainly a unique premise, but with no way to see what's beyond the cosmic horizon, we probably would never know for sure what's really there. So now I'm going to ask you this. If those spirits exist beyond in that realm, do they exist in that realm? And then with that energy that we create here on Earth, do they access those portals and come visit us through those portals?
Right. I think, yes. I think we have As crazy as that sounds, we have evidence telling us there's a couple of things. Oh, there's a lot there. Man, there's a lot there. So I don't want to get, wow, I love this guy. Okay, so yes, and I think that Tesla was trying to say that sort of scientifically, but he was saying that up there in the stratosphere, you have so much energy that based on what Einstein's saying, we really need to be looking at that energy and seeing if it is going to basically release us from the Fermi paradox, allow us to travel without fuel, without having to carry a bunch of fuel and stuff like that, and that we just go and basically make ourselves immune to the gravity somehow by putting a bubble or a gravity immunity bubble around us, let the cosmos sort of spin below us, and then release the bubble, and then, bah, whoa, look at this, I'm in Africa. Look at, that kind of a thing. I don't know what, but that's what I've always thought. I don't have the capacity to. So when I hear somebody who's saying that, I'm like, I know, I see that picture, but I've never had really the words to say it.
Right.
And the other thing is the Bible. There is that Bible connection and the life. The Bible's just so like, yeah, he lived to be 500 years old. What's the problem with that? And like people are living all these sorts of, and we're like, no, that is one of the things. Like this is one of the things that makes this Bible full of it. When no, that's one of the things that's actually ringing some of the bells that we're not completely familiar with. That there are spirits, that there are people that Einstein said that two twins that competed for the same egg and shared a supposed now, in other words and other ways of perspectives, they don't share that now. They can be completely, one can be in the other's future by tens of years, right?
Mhm.
If they encounter a gravitational anomaly, if they encounter high voltage. And so that's kind of what that is also alluding to. The third and most sort of scientific takeaway on this is that the division between those places ultimately needs to be electrical, I think, is what I finally decided, is that you need to have positive charges, negative charges, ions, and you have all these different things. And there's no better expert, there's no better machine to describe that than the Van de Graaff generator, created by Robert Van de Graaff, a very simple sort of machine that takes a spark, just like from your laundry, but it has a conveyor belt that rubs across animal fur, some whatever, something very highly static. And then that conveyor literally takes the spark up to the big metal ball. It has a brush that takes the spark off of the conveyor, and the conveyor goes down and picks up another spark. And he's done it in such a way that there's negative and positive ions happening at different places to push the ions around so that they take different, the ions positive over here and the negative are over here. They're completely different. They don't want to mix.
Okay.
And that's the concept. There's electrical concepts of what attracts each other and what doesn't attract each other, what is conductive, what isn't conductive, and those different barriers in space of gravitationalness, so that you've got high voltage and gravity, but at different lengths. And at some point, when you have so much high voltage and you have so much gravity, you have a black hole, and you don't tick. Your hands don't move on your clock. Or, you're on that other side of, you're in the core of the sun, and you can be anywhere. Like you ask, can those ghosts go down, and you're anywhere. You can be anywhere, and you can be anytime. You're omnipotent, I suppose. And again, way beyond my University of Utah degree. But if we're going to be talking about something scientific, defining and delineating what happens to people in the end, it's going to be electrical, and we've already done the physics. There's positive, there's negative, there's ions, and those effects are going to be, I think, exactly what's happening. And so the idea of making Earth as the way it is on heaven um, is would be electrical.
Yeah. What do you believe? What do you believe from your standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, what do you believe happens when we pass?
Well, I think that, and I think what happens is that experts will agree with me that there's evidence that tends to tell us that we're in a simulation, that there's more of a mathematical possibility that we're in a simulation that we're not. Now, a lot of people, again, are throwing stuff at simulation. How could that be? And
Okay, let it out.
right,
Let it
to
out, brother.
remember the lives and the words that I'm saying, of all the billions of people would, just the memory would require like a whole nother universe just for the storage of the whole thing. So I don't think that it's a simulation like that. I think that you have to think of it in terms of a simulation like if you're writing a paper. Let's like if you're writing a paper and you haven't really worked out the end yet, and you're like, I'm just going to really focus on the introduction. And you're going along and you're writing this introduction, and you say to yourself, what is going to happen in the ending? Because I want to sort of build that into the introduction so it ties back out like that right there.
Yeah.
And when you're in a simulation, that's what's happening there. You don't have the ending. The intro has sort of been taken out. There's been some sort of an experiment with time, let's say, and somebody went back in time and said, let's say we didn't launch that dumb old bomb anyway, and or let's say let's change the outcome. Let's say we did do the Hiroshima thing and we weren't really happy with the results, and so we went back in time. We figured out some way because Einstein and Tesla said, oh yeah, it's no problem. Just get in front of this death ray and we'll send you back there and you can work it out. And so they did, and they came back and they gave us what we have now, and they sort of had to iron parts out with the movie 1941 from Spielberg.
Mhm.
Right? And Belushi had to get in there somehow. And it's sort of a couple of places where we need a little nip and a tuck. But basically, let's say that happened. Well, now you have two realities. You have the real reality that we were in, and now you have this reality that we created that is nuclear free and all that stuff. Well, it's like, oh, darn it. Can we do it again? Because I lost my mom, or something happened to one of these scientists. They're like, let's do it again. And then finally, somebody's like, really, if you want to do this thing, I've got this computer we can just do this thing rapid fire. Let's do these like millions of times over and over again. And that's where the math comes in. If you're doing multiple simulations to optimize one real event, then you're more likely to be in the multiple simulations than the one real event, right? Okay. Here's what happens, and again, this is based on our local Mormons here and their beliefs, strong beliefs about reincarnation, about a spirit world before this and a spirit world after this,
Mhm.
about a founder that talked to spirits, that believes that the spirits told them this. And then that we have these stories about reincarnation and these funny stories about people that are put into children's bodies and basically use the child to solve their murder. If you've heard that story in India,
Yep.
you know the one. I've used those as a framework to say, here's a possibility, and it's out there, and I don't mean for people to discount me for it, but it is an explanation that works. And it's the simulation. And you see sometimes, particularly when people are murdered or when there are problems like 9/11, when there's war, you see that that's where we have this reincarnation QC issue. Now, we don't have QC issues in natural world, in a scientific natural world, so we must be misinterpreting something wrong. How does a murdered man get into an 18-month-old baby boy and teach him to talk? How does his birthmark of a gunshot through his head transfer to this baby 18-month-old boy who's using these big, massive words, who's born right near the Taj Mahal, and solves the murder of a radio, actually a radio guy. Was in the radio high voltage business. I think that guy touched something high voltage or something, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
you're,
so my theory is that when we have that there are spirits, that there is a being there's a physical being part of us, and that there is a spirit being part, and that spirit is entirely electrical. And as much as we want to think that that's Aunt Mary, or that that's our own family and it all stays familial, it doesn't. It looks like that it's very possible that our experience here can be exploited by higher intelligences. Like you said, demons. But they're not demons. They're just higher intelligence that don't give a single damn about us. They could be teenagers that are going like, hell yeah, let's mess with this guy all the way to town. And yeah, it's demonic to us, but it's just a teenager exploiting something that they're seeing it. And we get god-awful hauntings and um, Rancho Cucamonga, you probably heard about that. 200-year-old spear materializes in this house from the Congo. How does that do that unless it's this theory, unless it's um, something in 200 years ago is in the front of this portal underground, who knows what it is, and thinks, I think the only thing I can do is throw my spear at it. And they did. And it ends up in Rancho Cucamonga, California. And that family that was just, I can't even talk about it because of how
Yeah,
active of a case that is right now.
I hear you. I hear you. I want to switch gears here a little bit, and I want to deal with the cryptozoological uh, side of things. And I want to address Bigfoot to be exact. And because I find it fascinating, there's two camps here. You have the apers who believe that Bigfoot is an actual physical being. You have the other that believe it's more of a metaphysical being, that it travels through portals, and it's really a extraterrestrial type creature. I shouldn't say extraterrestrial, but it's more of a metaphysical creature. Uh,
Yeah.
that it travels through portals. It's connected to aliens. It's more of a creature that moves through portals. It's more of an energetic being. The way that your theory works, I believe, this is probably a creature that accesses portals. It doesn't leave behind very many physical things. Where do you fall when it comes to something like Bigfoot or Sasquatch?
Yeah. Um, again, when you look at the physical attributes of it, oh, let me back up. Let me just back up a little bit because I love this question. As a boy, probably you too, I remember driving to Oregon and looking out the window like, oh, I'm going to see Bigfoot on the way here from Utah all the way to Oregon. And Bigfoot was a big thing when I was a boy. And so now as an adult with Bigfoot still around, I was a skeptic. I'm like, well, that's impossible. Then that's one place I'm drawing the line and saying, no, Bigfoot is going to be one of the things that we're like, ha ha, that's funny. Let's get a shirt and a coffee mug and let's all really talk about this. But then, yeah, the more I got into this and the more that I realized that it was sort of things that are a mystery tend to kind of get this sort of paint job. And Bigfoot is definitely a mystery. So, what scientific facts do we have about Bigfoot that are going on? Well, mostly in up here in the western area, a lot of times in the Oregon and all that place, very near volcanic activity. Volcanic activity and places where there's a place where, yeah, there could be very well a place to plug this phenomenon in. So, how am I making volcanic activity not a guy in an ape suit? Okay, well, easy, really, actually. You have the Rocky Mountains that were formed over 50 million years. In those tens of millions of years, caverns were created, and those caverns were absolutely turned. The walls, the ceilings, the floors, the whole thing were as conductive as a Van de Graaff generator. Now, the Van de Graaff generator has gone on to become the atom smasher, and now it's at the heart of the Large Hadron Collider. When we talk about, everybody's talking about how we need more energy and the world needs all this stuff. It's not 9-volt batteries that we need. It's not 12-volt batteries to run Teslas. What the military is talking about is high voltage. We are trying to figure out how can we get those voltages up there to do the things that Einstein told us that it would do. That's why you find a hole on the moon. Gave you that picture. That's why you find plans to put an energy generator on the moon. That hole is going to attract and generate static electricity to no end, and you can use that energy to do work. Oh, so anyway, so that's where I'm going with that. We see all of the available
But
circuitry.
when it comes to Bigfoot, though, are you saying that this is a physical creature to you, or is this a trans-dimensional creature?
Oh, sorry, I even got lost myself. So a few
Okay.
viewers like, what are we talking? We're talking. Thank you for bringing them on. Like, oh yeah, we have the circuitry now for a being that doesn't know the difference. It's just walking along, and all of a sudden it walks through this high voltage gravitational anomaly that stalls his physical massive being or whatever, like the hull of the USS, like the scrotum of the bull, and it sort of holds him in time, makes him anti-gravity for a fraction, a tiniest fraction of his, but it's enough for his home to move, for the Earth and the whole entire cosmos to move south. We're moving north, and so his body is going to end up south in Utah, above this volcano, in this basin, in Oregon or something like that. And he's going to be like, what happened? I swear 2 hours just went by and I don't know what. I just was going through stoplights and I hope they were green. But I think that is an explanation I can live with for some of the sea creatures that we find and for and for Bigfoot. Because we get back to this, we shot our own selves in the foot by saying, well, nothing really has happened here on Earth for all this time. And so, okay, good. Then how did you get this humanoid Bigfoot fully formed and all that? Like, what sort of evolution happened that is, we don't have it. We don't have his trash heap. We don't have anything to say that. So we're stuck with this possibility that he came from another place all together. And we'll say, well, how can that be? Because we're all about spaceships and we're all about physically getting in something and going there. But no, we're seeing that it's very possible that the Fermi paradox isn't all that it's cracked up to be, that there's other possible ways that we can move throughout this universe without ever even having to leave the comfort of our own satellite dish.
Excellent. All right. As we begin to wrap up here today, Gib, I guess I would ask you this. We're dealing with the phenomena. You mentioned the hole in the moon and trying to come up with more energy. Now we're coming up with the phenomena of data centers, right? And the idea that AI is here. And with AI, we need more energy. So I'll leave you with this last question, and that's this. With the need to create more energy, we're of course having to amp up the amount of energy that we're creating here on this earth. With that, are we also creating more paranormal phenomena?
Yeah. But anyway, sort of, yes, it's, you have to imagine if you can go back in time, if you had all the energy that you needed to do it, to go back in time, that you could be a real estate agent. And you could say, well, sir, wouldn't you love this house? You like it now, but do you want a river in the back? Wouldn't you like to have a river? Because then you send your AI agent back in time to sort of change the headwaters of that river, make the river. Do you want to have Anastasia ruins in your backyard? Do you want to have petroglyphs? Great. You send that AI agent. If you have the energy, then you send that AI agent back 2 million years or however many years it has to go back in time to change the headwaters, to do something to get the Anastasia to come over to this spot, to just give the suggestion, maybe you flick a little light so that the chief analyzes, like, what's over there? And the next thing you know, you've changed history. And I think that there's a great possibility that we talked about versioning, we talked about, but yeah, if you want to talk about the future of real estate, could very well be using Einstein's time dilation. I know this is getting a lot of people throwing stuff at screens. Using time dilation, using high voltage to go back in time to literally landscape your new house. Um, and so,
So do you think with us, okay, now building these data centers, having to create more energy, having to push more energy out into the earth and onto Earth, are you saying that we're essentially going to be able to create time travel physically?
yeah, I think we're already doing it, is the thing. If we're going to talk speculatively,
Yeah.
I believe that the Mormons, they stopped doing it, but they had to. They had to because I think that we're in a simulation, that we don't have the end. We're not really on the real path, is what the physics is saying. And so they literally had to go back to Hill Cumorah, which is a pyramid out there in upstate New York, where they had to put a lid on the place where he said he was talking to these spirits. And then at the times when he was talking to those spirits, they're out there doing these massive pageants that he described that he saw. So what are the possibilities that there's this little circular thing happening there that he's seeing the people that he, commissioned to go and be his religion is coming full circle. And now he's seeing in that same place these choirs of angels singing to him. These just massive, and that's what he's seeing. Donny Osmond quit his Las Vegas gig to go be a part of this thing, and then they wrapped it up and said, "This is over. We're done. This thing is finished." And so I'm like, I had the same question. What does that mean for this theory then? And that's how I came up with this, is that like, we could be in a simulation, and when you die, you got nowhere to go, friend. Because you're not, we haven't built, heaven ain't not here yet. It's not, you're in a simulation. So everything is real until the death part. And then it's like, oh, hello. And then just like the LDS says, you're in this sort of zone of just a bunch of spirits just waiting to be connected to something, to another to an animal, another person, and who knows how that works. But it seems to be that it would be electric. That if it's not genetic, which is what we thought it was, is like, oh, mom's having a baby, then somewhere up in that sort of ionosphere or whatever, that there's a little spirit getting all ready to go. It's like, oh, my grandma's really. But no, it just may be like everything else is in this world. It may be just opportunity. Oh, look, empty vessel. Boy, I'm in. It's like
Mm.
I'd rather be in a cat, walking around on Main Street than just this sort of. Again, there was a story about a woman who was murdered, and that it sounded like she was trying to communicate with the people in her house by leaving shoes around and trying to be friendly and stuff like that. And they were like, ah, freaked out, like, oh, we got a ghost for sure. It's like, no, no, I was just trying to be.
I was just trying to let you know I'm here, right?
I'm here and I can't, I'm a ghost and I can't, there's no place for me to go. It's not that I've been, how people say that they're lost spirits, or there's like, they've been bad and they blah, blah. No, it's just physics. There's no place for them to go. Their story finished, like they didn't think that there was going to be a murder, or there was going to be this 9/11 experience, and now we have all of these QC issue people going, the last thing I remember is jumping out of a building. I don't mean to joke about it, but I mean, what are the odds of that fitting into that? So it's not my theory, it's a journalist following the facts, and I'm following the trail, and that's where it's led me.
Interesting. It's an interesting endpoint. I'll give you that. It's definitely an interesting endpoint. I tell you what, we've got a link to Gib, to his website, and not only that, but his YouTube channel. And I encourage you folks to check it out. It's interesting research, that's for sure, Gib.
Thanks.
I'll tell you that. But thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks, Tim.
Definitely appreciate it. Folks, around the weekend, and I'll tell you what, there's a couple of notes here for you. One, a lot of people have switched over on their iPhones to 26, the iOS 26 or 26.6.2, I believe it is. it's disabled some people's Darkness Radio apps on Apple. So I tell you, we are upgrading right now. So your Darkness Radio Apple app may be disabled. That's okay. We are working on the update. So be patient. That will be reenacted here or re-enabled here soon. Just keep looking for the update. You'll see it on your phone or your device, whatever you're looking for, whether it be iPad, Apple phone, whatever you're using. Second, we have new swag in the shop, darknessradioshow.com. Be sure this weekend to go out and grab yourself a brand new Darkness Radio hoodie or True Crime Tuesday hoodie. Either that or we have a brand new Darkness Radio mug or Darkness Radio rocks glass for your cocktail or a desk mat. All kinds of great stuff. Just go check it out, darknessradioshow.com in the shop. And third, we are on the weekend, and ladies and gentlemen, it is cold out there. I'll tell you this much. You probably have a member of your family or the community out there that is elderly or disabled and needs your help, whether it be shoveling snow, whether it be going and helping them clean up the house and get things tidied. There's somebody in your community this weekend that needs your help, or just getting out of the house and shopping. So go help someone in your community that is elderly or disabled. Be a light in someone's darkness this weekend. A message from your friends here at Darkness Radio. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week for another great week of shows. Thank you so much for continuing to listen and contribute to and support the best in paranormal podcasting. We love you and appreciate you. We'll see you next week right here on Darkness Radio.
For more audio and video archives of the show, intriguing content, fun events, and cool swag, check out darknessradioshow.com. The executive producer of Darkness Radio is Troy Palmer. If you enjoyed today's program, make sure you like and subscribe. This videocast is copyrighted for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this videocast, including audio, video, descriptions, or accounts of this show, are prohibited without the consent of Darkness Radio Management. Thank you for watching, and have a great weekend. And be sure to include an elderly or disabled member of your community in your weekend plans and be a light in someone's darkness.